Welcome back, Cat 37 class. We're going to go over bitangent shape fillets. Okay, so we're going to use a shape fillet command. Here it is, shape fillet. Okay, so we did boundaries, extract, and next to that one are the fillets. There's a drop down here, so you can pick more options when it comes to creating fillets. We're going to do the first one, shape fillet, using bitangent. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the file. Okay, so we're going to create a shape fillet between these two surfaces. Save time, I'm going to create a geoset. Okay, so let's go ahead and use shape fillet, the first one, shape. Okay, so we're going to shape these two surfaces. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here. It's hard to see, but we have these red arrows. Let me change the lighting a little bit. Let me light this up a little bit. It's a little too dark. All right, so you need to be aware of the red arrows, that they're pointing in the right direction. There's 4 options, so depending on which direction the red arrows are pointing for each surface, that'll tell it which direction to generate the fillet. I want it to be up here, so I'm going to point both arrows inward in this direction, so it'll create the fillet. Okay, so there's one pointing this direction, and now the other one pointing in this direction. So one in this direction, the other in this direction. And preview, and there's my fillet. Let me increase the size. Let's go to 20. Preview, there's our fillet. Okay, so what shape fillet does is it'll generate a fillet and trim off the excess and then join them as one. Hit OK. There it is. Generates a fillet. Remove the excess, and join it as one. We can go back to fillet and say, hey, we want the fillet, but we want to keep the original parent, so we can turn off trim, turn it off, preview, and it'll keep everything. The parents and the fillet will be its own separate entity. But most of the times when you do a fillet, you want to remove the excess and join it as one. So let's go back and turn on the trim options. Again, trim will split and join. In this case, it'll join all 3 patches. And OK. Okay, so let's go back, double click on it. So you have some options. You can say either, hey, I want to go smooth. I want you to clean this up when you create the fillet. Or you can say, hey, I want the minimum, the smallest fillet possible. Preview, there it is. Okay, that's what you get if you go with minimum. Okay, if you go with straight, give me a straight fillet. The straighter the better. Preview. Okay, that's a straight one. Let me hit OK. It's not as clean as a smooth one, right? Go back. Say, no, I want the maximum fillet you can give me. Give me the maximum. Preview. Notice it goes as far as it can go. But typically you want something smooth. So I'm going to go back down to smooth and preview. Okay, smooth looks a lot cleaner. Okay, there's some options here also. Let's go back. If you want to go quartal, instead of a 20 millimeter radius, I can say I want the distance from tangent to tangent. So that'll be quartal. Notice by picking that option, now it's giving me a distance of 20 from tangent to tangent instead of a radius of 20. Okay. So the distance from this tangent line to this one is 20 instead of a radius of 20. Double click. Okay, you can also pick the conic option. Okay, so conic, you can go up as high as 0.9999 and as far down as 0.000001. Okay, so let's see what happens. If I go up to 0.99 for conic shape, 0.9 0.99 and preview. It's almost a sharp corner, right? Let's go back to 0.5, the default preview. Okay, there's another option, right? Okay, let's go down to 0.1. 0.1, preview, and it's almost flat. Yeah, it is transitioning over, but it's almost pretty flat. Let's go with 0.4, 0.4 preview. Okay, a little better. Looks a lot cleaner transition, right? And okay, so what is this conic option that we were just looking at? Let's go back to the tutorial. So if you remember conic sections, right? Take a cone shape, slice it horizontally, you get a circle. Slice it at an angle. At the top, you get a ellipse. If you slice it along the side and through the middle of through the axis of the cone, then you have a parabola, right? That's a parabolic shape. And if you cut at the edge without going towards the center, you get a hyperbola. Okay, so these are the type of fillets we're getting: circular, elliptical, parabolic, hyperbolic. Okay, so if we go back to the tutorial, if you type in 0.5, it'll give you a parabolic shape for your fillet. If it's something between 0 and 0.5, so less than 0.5 but greater than 0, you get an ellipse. And if you type in something greater than 0.5 but less than 1, you get a hyperbola. Okay, and this comes in handy when you're shaping a edge, especially in automotive, when you're shaping the edges of a, for example, center console, the seat, the headrest of a seat, or the dash, for example. It's preferred that you go with something with a more cleaner transition. So you go from one surface to another instead of a round fillet. Okay, all right, let's continue on. And just to remind you, if I double click and I flip the arrows to be pointing in the opposite direction, let's see what we get if I flip the arrows. If I flip them both, it should now give me this fillet. As you can see, it flipped it. Okay, so always be aware of the red arrows when creating a fillet. Make sure you know which direction they're pointing. There's a 50-50 chance it's going to give you something you don't want. All right, so let's go on to the next one. Okay, so now let's move on to this one. Shape fillet. Okay, let's go ahead and open it. And just to save time, I'm not going to create a geoset. All right, so we have two surfaces. Notice the surfaces are separate. So in order to use shape fillet, once again, you need two separate surfaces that cannot be joined. Okay, so let's use, once again, shape fillet. Later we'll use the edge fillet. That's where you're doing a fillet on an edge of joined surfaces. In this case, these surfaces are not joined. Okay, so let's shape. And let's pick our surfaces. And I'm going to go with the radius of 20 millimeters. Okay, and I'm going to hit preview. Error! I forgot about the red arrows, right? Okay, it's telling me, hey, the arrows are not pointing in the right direction. Okay, so the one appears pointing inward. Okay, that one's good. This one's pointing outward, so I need to flip it by clicking on it. So now they're both pointing inward. Preview. Okay, now we get our fillet. Let's increase our fillet. Let's go to 50 and see what happens. 50, preview. Okay, there's our fillet. And if you want to go chordal, tangent to tangent, go to chordal, preview. So it's 50 millimeters from tangent to tangent instead of a radius of 50 as it's traveling along. Okay, once again, you also have conic option. Do you want to go with parabolic, preview? Do you want to go with something hyperbolic or elliptical, right? You can increase. preview. Okay, we can also use a spine. So there's a line here. Put more. And just like when we did lofting and sweeps, we can use a spine. Let's see here. Let me turn off the conic option. And let's go to radius. Okay, let's go to spine. So I can use a spine or a hold curve if you want more control of the fillet. Okay, so when it's generating, when we use spine, the fillet, instead of following the shape of the surface, it's going to follow the spine and it'll go normal to the spine as it's generating the fillet, okay? Preview. See, we get a different shape. So it's taking the fillet, and instead of the fillet going around mimicking the surfaces, it's actually going to stay perpendicular to the spine. That's why we get a different looking shape. Okay, we can also use a law. Let's say on one end you want it to be 50, on the other end you want it to be 100. So I'm going to exaggerate. And let's go with linear. So on one end I want it at 50, the other end I want it to be 100 for radius. Close it and preview. And there you go. So it starts off at 50 back here. You can close this in a little bit further. Okay, and preview. So it starts off at 50 and it increases up to 100 in radius. Okay, so that's using the law. Okay, that's the result we get. Okay, so this is shape fillet. Okay, let's see if we have anything else to cover. Okay, we did the law. Okay, let's go to this one. Oh, this one's going to be a little bit tougher. All right, so okay, let's open up this one, shape fillet number 2. And let's open. So this one has a really tight transition, so that's what's going to give us problems. Okay, so here it is, and just to save time, I'm not going to do a geoset. Let me light it up a little bit more. It's a little too dark. Okay, so we're going to do a fillet between these two surfaces. So it's this surface and this one. Always make sure the red arrows are pointing inward. Okay, faces to keep. Okay, so this is where we have to decide which portions we want to keep because there's some tight turns here. So we're going to keep faces to keep in order to be able to generate this fillet. All right, so let's attempt this. Okay, so let's do, so once again, there's this surface. Let me change the color on this one. Okay, so as you can see, we have two surfaces. And we're going to do a fillet, but there's a tight transition here. Let me see what fillet size we're going to be using. 20. Okay, so we're going to use 20 millimeters. And we're going to have to try and help this along to generate the fillet. Okay, so let's use shape fillet again. Same fillet, the first one, shape. Pick our surfaces. And notice the arrowheads are pointing in the wrong direction. You have to point them inward or you're going to get an error message. Okay, so now they're both pointing inward. And the fillet is going to generate in this direction. Okay, and preview. It's telling us there's a problem. So let's increase first the radius to 20. I forgot to do that. And preview. And okay, it's trying to shape it. But because of these tight turns here, it doesn't know what it's supposed to keep. Okay, so let's say, okay, let's click on more. And we have to tell it which portions we want to keep. Faces to keep. So let's click the little bag here. Say okay. So it's having trouble deciding which of these patches to keep. So let's say we want to keep this portion, but not the others. See if we want to keep this portion. See if that helps it along. I'm going to close this. So once again, I chose this surface and I left the other ones alone. We want to get rid of the other portions so it can smooth out, transition to the other surface, and preview. And it seems to like it, right? So we're basically telling it to ignore these rectangular planar surfaces, and okay. And there it is. Okay, so we got our fillet. All right, let's go back, see if we missed anything. Okay, it talks about trim. Remember, you can trim off the excess by keeping the trim options turned on. We already covered that portion. All right, so we're done with this video. Go ahead and save your work and see you in the next video.